Welcome to the Foster Together Network Mentorship Series. I'm Alicia Smith, former foster youth, advocate for former and current foster youth, a UCLA MSW student, and I'm a member of the Foster Together Network Backbone Consulting Team at Big Orange Splat. I want to welcome you to the Foster Together Network. FTN is an enthusiastic and very engaged collaborative that includes county departments, foster family agencies, parents, philanthropy, and of course, the incredible current and former foster youth who are all dedicated to tackling our child welfare system's greatest challenges. We are so excited to invite you to this series on mentoring for youth and parents because this session has been driven by the visions and the voices of youth and parents themselves. They're the ones who know exactly what they need from their points of view. So this is so exciting, and particularly I'm really excited about this session because during my time as a transitioning foster youth, I had the pleasure of meeting an amazing mentor at a transitional housing program. He truly helped me shape my path towards independence. And I don't believe I would be in this space today had it not been for him guiding me towards my goals and aspirations. So shout out to you, Daniel, and all the other important mentors that are doing such important work. This is why I'm so thrilled about this session, because proper mentoring is probably one of the most important tools for success for current and former foster youth to really help us see the vision of our path to success. Because we don't really know what we don't know, right? We can't achieve something that we don't know exists. And if we do know it exists, we sometimes need help figuring out how to get there, or we need someone there who believes that we can do it. So mentors help us turn dreams into achievable realities. And I say we because a great portion of our panelists today are also former foster youth. And so I am beyond excited to hear their stories. This session is the first in a 3-part series on mentorship for foster youth and parents. Each session will be recorded and available on the FTN YouTube channel. And if you'd like a certificate for tracking of training hours, please make sure to fill out the survey at the end. And now I would like to turn it over to Mr. Alain Datcher, Executive Director, LA County Youth Commission, who will set the stage for our fabulous speakers and agenda today.
Thank you so much, Alicia, and good morning and welcome again to the Foster Together Network Connection Series. My name is Alain Datcher and I will serve as today's moderator. We are in for an exciting series of conversations with some brilliant leaders and experts in this space. Just a few housekeeping items before we begin. Attendees will have the opportunity to pick either English or Spanish channels. Those directions will be placed directly into the chat. Additionally, there are also live transcription services available. You can see the directions in order to select live transcription services available in the chat as well. Now we will move into our grounding moment. I would like to take the opportunity to introduce Vinny DeVerso, Mentoring Program Manager with the Alliance for Children's Rights. Welcome, Vinny, and thank you for joining us today. You have been a mentor to me and to so many other people who have been impacted by the foster care and the juvenile justice system. Can you begin, can you start by just sharing with us what grounds you in this work?
Always believe in the best from the person you're trying to help. Never look down on them, no matter if you feel like they're not up to your standards. It's really not about you. It really is about the young person that you're trying to help. Who they are now is not who they're going to be in 10 years anyway. And my job is to help them be the best they can be by motivating them, not judging them. I mean, sometimes I have to shake my head or hide my face if I'm going to laugh at something that I know somebody's doing. And I'm like, wow, really? But, you know, you got to let somebody make their own mistakes and just be there for them and let them know you're going to be there for them when they've made that mistake. They have to really understand. And I know I've been tested by young people who really thought I'd walk away for a variety of reasons. And I'm not going to walk away. It's not necessarily my life. I'm trying to help you, you know, be the best you can be. And that's all that I can do. It's completely non-judgmental. And you have to be a really good listener. I mean, legitimately be a good listener. You know, some people think that they are. And then I talk to young people who have a mentor and they say, you know, they don't hear me. They're too busy talking about themselves, or they're too busy worrying about their own issues, and they're not really hearing me. And so I would say that if you're going to mentor somebody, you really, really have to listen to what it is they're saying. I just want to encourage everyone, though, that I will tell you the best mentors, they'll let you know they get more out of it than the young person does. You know, for me to be my age and act the way I do sometimes, I realize it's the influence of young people that are around me, and I appreciate them for that because they keep me from being an old man. Easy with an Alain Datcher to be a mentor. It's the young people who might not be Alain Datchers that are the ones that are going to challenge you, and that's when it becomes really worth it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Appreciate you, Alain. Thank you.
Appreciate us in that moment and appreciate it. All right, folks. Now we'll go ahead and move to the second phase of our conversation. Really, and it'll be a presentation from Jess Sklar. She's the co-founder and executive director of Think of Us, a research and design lab for foster care, working across the country, doing amazing work and innovating, really, and improving outcomes for young people and systems impacted young people across the country. She'll help us frame what the data tells us about foster youth relationships. So without further ado, Jess, please take it away.
Thanks, Alan. I appreciate that. I do want to add one quick correction before I go in, is that my role as managing partner. Sixto Cancel is very much the founder and CEO of Think of Us. And I have the honor and privilege of being his, we describe it as I am the how to his why. So I want to sort of do that honor. But I'm honored today to get to share a little about some of the work that Think of Us has done on the data side of understanding what are young people's needs, what are people saying, because our belief deeply is it is not about us deciding. Vinny, I'm going to go with your sort of perspective of listening, right? It is not about us telling, it is about us listening to what people need. And so I'll share a little bit about what Think of Us has done in a couple different avenues around that. Presentation mode. Apologies, it always takes me a second. I want to get it just right. So a little bit about Think of Us. Again, our sort of focus is how do you center lived experience? What does that look like, and how in every way, shape, and form are we listening and bringing that forward? So today I'll share about two sets of data work that we did. The first is a quantitative and qualitative study, a micro cash grant that we did in late 2020 to understand the impacts of COVID-19 on current and former foster youth. And the other one was sort of an in-depth study that we did with about 209 young people across jurisdictions about the experience of aging out. All of the data I'm going to share here is national. It's across the space, but I am right now going to put in the chat our LA County specific data. So this is many pages of very in-depth data, but I wanted to make sure everyone had it as we're focused on LA County today. Moving in, our first set of data, we ran again in sort of late 2020. What was the experience that young people were having, current and former foster youth ages 18 to 29 with the pandemic? And we had over 27,000 responses from across the country. This is sort of the spread of where do all those people live, the darker colors, meaning higher populations. And you can see LA County and Southern California, very, very high responses. These are some of the demographics. I know this will be sort of shared and available later, but essentially what we found is that all the demographics we had in our survey mirrored those of those in care nationally. Move through these relatively quickly, but you can see across the ages. Then we went into what are people's self-stated needs. So what are people looking for money for? And then what are the sort of biggest needs that people can use support for? And again, this is sort of fall 2020, but very, very consistent. I think what's really, really important here is where we get here to talk about what do young people say about the connections in their life. So nearly 50% responded that they had a personal connection that they could rely on for advice or support. And this could be an aunt, an uncle, a teacher, a coach, a neighbor, a pastor. But 50% said they had this, which means 50% did not. We also have 40.1% reported they had a friend that they could rely on for advice or support. Again, indicating that many people were finding different forms of community support. But when we dug into this, it was not always directly through the interactions of the foster care system, which I think is really important. And nearly 13% were specifically asking for more mentorship and more connections. I think this is also really important is what are folks' self-stated needs? What are people looking for and relying upon? And so here we're looking at folks are looking for connections with professionals they want to work with. They want help with a budget. They need help writing a resume. Some of these are not only the advice that Vinny and Alain were describing, right? Life advice in the moments and listening, but sometimes this is very tangible and specific information. And we saw this over and over and over again. And it always was surprising, but it was, I want connections. I want support on these different pieces. I wanted to quickly say these are some of the self-stated needs in LA. And so again, they're very consistent with what we saw nationally. So we have everything from the support with the professionals to help applying for something specific, to help writing a resume, speaking with someone to express myself, providing tips on coping with information. So again, very, very specific and tangible things. And again, asking, what is it that you're looking for and how do I show up for you? The second thing, project that I want to talk about around some of the data that we have is really around these youth network maps. And so think of us, one of our primary strategies is participatory research, because we want to really understand research by nature is often extractive. It's pooling information from folks. And we want to create participatory engagement activities in which we are building and designing what this looks like together. And so from 2019 to 2020, we worked with about 209 young people in transition age youth in 5 different jurisdictions around the country. And we did youth network maps, which is one of the strategies that we use. So the first theme that we saw was sort of this concept of closeness. And I think there's often this perception that young people don't have anyone. That's not true. What we found over and over again, it's not that folks don't have folks, it's that the structure of our system often makes those relationships by nature become underdeveloped because of transitions in the space, movement, reliance, et cetera. So these are some of the examples of what we gathered here. But we can see here, green is for those that someone feels close to, and yellow is where they felt like they could ask for help. And so this one actually grouped their folks into these 4 different buckets of humans. And 4 different buckets. They aligned romantic, friends, coworkers, and then foster family. This young person differentiated between close friends and then people that they knew, and where and how they were going to align around that. We also had a really interesting finding that as for those that were aging out of care, the definition of family and paid staff also became somewhat intermingled. And paid staff were there at so many different huge moments in life, really pivotal moments. And that was beautiful and very supportive. However, when youth were aging out, this added a whole other dimension to that experience. And I want to clarify what this looks like here. But essentially, when paid staff becomes centered, it becomes yet another loss and yet another piece in where that flows. And it makes it harder for natural relationships to build and observe. And so we saw this in folks were describing over and over again case managers as falling as family. The most prominent relationship in certain people's lives with their ILP case manager. And in some ways, we think this is beautiful, right? This person is really showing up and supporting this person. But again, once the system ends, where are all those connections? And how are we designing to support across the board? And the final thing I know today, we're here to talk about the importance of mentors, which is absolutely critical. But over and over and over again, in every conversation we had, peers and siblings rose to the top. And so we didn't want to go a moment without highlighting how critical those relationships are to folks. And so we see this young person's network map as entirely 2 friends and a sibling. And so finishing up from that space, I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. I think at the core, all of the research and the data that Think of Us has done quantitatively, qualitatively in LA County, nationally, like across the board, what we see over and over and over again is that when mentors, when relationships with peers, siblings, and mentors can come into place and are acting in these key moments in life, in these key moments in space, those become lifelong relationships. And we see that the contractual relationships matter. They're important, right? In the system, that is what we signed up to do, right? And it's important that we're sort of showing up, but making sure that there is this broad network and this broad connection of natural lifelong relationships, those are what folks are going to carry through. And the more we can ask young people what they'd like and then show up and support them with it, the impact is really beautiful. And so I know we only have a few minutes, but happy to take any questions folks have about any of the specific data, any of the findings, any of the process we used, et cetera.
Yeah, if folks, thank you so much, Jess. That was incredible. If folks want to raise their hand, if they have a question for Jess, or drop it in the chat, we do have a few minutes. There's a lot of information and really important content. Thank you, Jess, and Think of Us for being part of the session today.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, hi, good morning, good morning. I'm Jasmine from Genesis in the beginning. We have a organization, we are a Christian organizations, and I growing up like a foster kid too, but in Argentina. So in my heart all the time, it's just try to help this, the kids. And I'm start to mentoring program with the foster kids and the young groups. And, my husband and I, we start to visit in the home groups 3 weeks before start the mentoring program, and we eat with the kids, we bring the food, it is on my heart. It is, I want to fight and I want to see the kids like leaders to help others in the back, right? I don't want to see the kids always like poor kids or the victim mentality. I need to see leaders. And like somebody mentioned before, it's to see how the kids are well, my point is this, let me say this. Yeah. My point is this, we start our program, we have a 4 weeks, we have 8 weeks program every Wednesday. And we have a Diamond Dell organization with the different homes. We have a Home Dreams organizations with different homes too. But it's very difficult. I have the capacity to have around 30 kids. I have 3 designated drivers to bring the kids through our installations, our amenities. We have everything in place. But the problem is, and sometimes the kids, I visit in the homes, the kids are asleep with the deep depressions. And,
Jasmine, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. We have a really packed agenda. And so if we could get you to ask the specific question, because we want to try to include just one more before we go on.
The question is, if you have any idea how I can improve the assistant to the program. We want to bless the kids.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think, I want to be clear. I think as I am not one of the kids you're trying to help, I'm not sure that question is sort of best positioned for me to answer. What I do think we find over and over is how and where are you asking, what support do you need? How do you want me to structure it? How do we show it up? And the more individualized it is, the more you're responding to that one person with what they need, the better success. But Alain, I will very much, I don't know if you all will be able to touch on that in the platform, but if you wanted to follow up with me, I'm happy to share some ideas about how to put forward those questions to the young people that you're meeting with and help inspire what can come next in the program.
Thank you, Jess. And we have time for just one more question. Does anyone have a question for Jess related to the data that she shared and the work that they've done related to foster youth and how they talk about the relationships in their lives? Please raise your hand, or you can drop it in the chat. All right, well, we'll certainly share Jess's contact information as well as the presentation. So if folks have questions or want to follow up with the Think of Us team afterwards, we'll make that available. Thank you so much, Jess.
Thanks, Lauren.
And now I want to turn it over back to Alain Datcher.
Thanks, Lauren, and thanks again, Jess, for really helping, set the stage and really provide a backdrop, I would say, for our next conversation, which will really be hearing, I think, on the other side of that coin, qualitatively, right? The stories, the narratives, the experience from those who are really on the front lines, young leaders and supporters that are in this work, building these relationships, building these connections with folks. And, before we really get into the conversation, I would like to say that when we talk about relationships and connections, that might be triggering for some, especially for many of the systems involved young people who might be joining today's call. So we have actually created a breakout room for those who just might need to step away from the conversation for a moment. You'll receive a prompt to join that breakout room. If you do not want to, you can join that breakout room at any time. That will be staffed with folks who are trauma informed, who will be there to have links and access to resources in case you may have any questions. So again, we will have that breakout room. It'll be available through the entirety of our conversation. We just want to make sure that folks have an opportunity, if they need to step away in case the content or some of our discussion points might be triggering. So without further ado, I would love to, again, segue our conversation directly to the young leaders who, again, are leading in this space. This is known as the fishbowl discussion. We're really just about to chop it up, as we say in the young community. We're about to just have a great conversation. I'm going to give a quick rapid fire introduction to our panelists, and then we're going to dive right in. Again, on our panel today, you'll have Angela Young. She's an LA County Youth Commissioner. We have Perla Lozano. She's a foster greatness mentor with an organization called Doing Good Works. We have Alexis Obina. She's a scholar with Ready to Succeed LA, an amazing organization here in our community. Latrice Marie. She's a youth speaker with Better Youth and the Right Way Foundation. Anna Judson. She's a UC Berkeley Guardian Scholar student. And Chloe Renee. She's a youth speaker with the Better Youth organization. So welcome again, panelists. So excited for our conversation today. All right. So as I mentioned, Jess kind of helped lay out kind of a backdrop on the data side, but I want to hear from you all around connections and mentors. We know that when you talk about mentor, that brings up different types of visions or even perspectives. So the first question is, could you share what a mentor means to you? And I'll start with Angela. Can you just share for a bit what a mentor means to you?
I feel like I have a couple of definitions of what a mentor means to me, but I feel like the biggest thing is that a mentor is like a supportive, like presence in my life that I can go to depend on to help me meet my goals, whether it's like a personal, professional, or educational goal.
Great, thanks, Angela. Next, Anna, and then we'll hear from Alexis.
Hi, I'm so happy to be in this space and also to see some really familiar faces. I saw my social worker joined. It's been a long time, as well as other mentor communities I've had the pleasure of working with since moving away from my foster care status in LA and into college. I think to me, having experienced different programs and being about to graduate from college and enter graduate school, I think mentorship is really, I want to echo what some other people said in this space today about meeting the youth where they are. Something that came up in a lot of our discussions together was we all have really diverse needs and what we're looking for and where we want support. Some people, it's really personal. They want that close friend and guidance in their everyday life. And for some, it's professional. Like, we need you to help chart the path into professional spaces where many of our peers and family members haven't been before. And yeah, so I think that's definitely a big one for me, kind of that personal aspect, but also the professional mentoring that I received. I really couldn't have done college without it.
Alexis.
Can you just repeat the question one more time?
You got it. Could you just share what a mentor means to you?
Thank you. So again, I just want to echo, welcome everyone. So good to see everyone. For me, just as everyone was saying, just going to do a quick echo that they do and they should meet youth where they're at. it also should be a two-way street. It shouldn't be like an authority, like the mentor isn't teaching the mentee and the mentee shouldn't be only teaching the mentor. It should be we're both learning and collaborating with each other. We're setting different boundaries and we're just making it very clear like what this mentorship is, what we want to focus on. It's okay if it's not solidified, like I want to focus on budgeting or whatever, but there needs to be a clear like, hey, we're going to meet for this long and this is what we're going to do. And this is why it's important to do this. So that's what a mentor is to me.
Yeah, and I just saw Latrice kind of drop a cosign in the chat here about omnidirectional, right? In that person's relationship in your life. So maybe Latrice, would you like to expand on that? And then we'll go to Perla, and then we'll round out this question with Chloe. And you're on mute. We're missing the good stuff. There you go.
I think I unmuted myself, but it's somebody out there controlling the mic. I'm sorry. But basically we use the term omnidirectional mentorship at Better Youth because it's a two-way street like you guys were describing. It shouldn't be just the mentee teaching them, the mentor teaching the mentee or the mentee like receiving from the mentor. It kind of works both ways. And I think any mentor in the room can attest that they've learned things that they probably didn't expect to learn from different youth that they're interacting with. So that's what I mean when I say like both should be learning from each other. And then of course there should be mutual respect and understanding between each other about how they're gonna like operate in the dynamic moving forward.
Thank you, Latrice. Perla, could you just explain what a mentor means to you?
Yeah, of course. Hi, everyone. So happy to be here. For mentorship, I feel like it's someone that is willing to walk with you and guide you through the good times and the bad times. It's someone who is being there for you to support you, not to solve the problems, more like to coach you and guide you so that in the long time, once the mentor is probably not meeting one-on-one anymore, the person is able to fix the problems and solve the problems individually.
Thank you for that. I feel like we're hearing the same theme around guidance and support. And so, Chloe, can you just share a little bit from your perspective as well, what mentorship means to you?
Okay, hold on with my metaphor. It's going to be being a mentor is going to sound so lame. Being a mentor is like being a surfer. If you can't handle and ride the wave, you're going to get swept under. It doesn't mean that you lose the thrill or that you're not a good surfer. Sometimes that wave isn't something you prepared for. And sometimes that wave, and this is the best part to remember, waves in the ocean, right? It's always going to be natural. It was never, ever your fault that the wave was too high or that it was too low that day. And that's the same for foster youth. You know, we are waves because what happens to us makes you a part of Earth. It makes you very temperamental, very vulnerable, fragile. You know, sometimes you can be the strongest thing ever made, or you can be dying from the systems in place, from the people that have tossed you away, from the people that don't care about you no more. And it's a lot like Earth. And so, you know, you have to know that being a mentor is not an unfulfilling job, but just as being a surfer can be kind of terrifying, you have to treat it as such. You have to be like, this is something I respect. When I step into the ocean, I got to be prepared to be in the ocean. I feel like if that makes any sense, that's kind of how I see it with mentorships and mentorees. Like it's a moment where we're fragile, we're vulnerable, and then someone else is getting in your water. And sometimes you're really calm and there's no tread and it's nice. And then other times it's not so calm. So I feel like sometimes it's just, you have to accept that it is a wave, and you know, there is training in place to be able to handle the wave. The same for the actual foster kids as well, that sometimes we can find waves to mellow out our waters. Yeah.
That's a powerful analogy. And I see a lot of cosigns there. I see everyone's heads nodding, especially when you use the surfer and waves analogy. So great job, Chloe. I think that really, I'd love to kind of keep our conversation kind of around that, because essentially what you're saying, Chloe, is that there's a wealth of experiences, and potentially good, bad, and different, that young people come to any type of relationship with, but especially a mentoring relationship with. And so it's important for any supporter or mentor or coach, how you all guidance, how you all have defined it. It's important for them to understand that as they are coming into this relationship. So, the next question is kind of around, what are you actually as a young person or as a leader looking for in a mentor, right? What brings you to that conversation? And so I'd love to start maybe with Latrice and then go into Perla. Can you just share with us, what are you looking for in a mentor, and kind of discuss that importance of that?
Okay, so I would say me personally, what I'm looking for in a mentor is somebody who is basically somebody who's confident in what they do, somebody who's well-rounded, somebody who's knowledgeable, and like me personally, business, film production, those are the things that I want to be able to come and ask for advice on. I also want to look for someone who's understanding, someone who is like they pay attention. Like earlier, I remember someone saying like you got to really listen. So someone who listens, that's able to like really process what I'm saying and not just hearing me. Yeah, and then someone like I could show up for and they could show up for me, and we can support each other, and it doesn't have to be a one-way street.
For me, I feel like there is not a specific thing that I'm looking for. We could have very different interests, but I would want somebody who's sympathetic, somebody who is going to show consistency, and it's going to be that person that I probably didn't have growing up. A lot of the times coming from the system, we don't see our potential, and there's other people that do and are going to work towards, bringing the best from you. And I've been lucky to experience that, where my mentors have seen my potential and continue pushing me, because there's just some days where I don't feel like giving it, or I don't even believe that I'm able to accomplish those things. So that's what I'm looking for in a mentor. I'm also looking for honesty, transparency. I would say that a lot of the times we come into this role like we're your mentors and we're not going to break down into you, but just knowing that we're all humans and that the person that I'm looking up to can also have hard times. It allows me to reconnect better and to understand that we're in the same boat.
That's such a good point. That's such a good point, Perla, especially when you talk about how you just need to humanize relationships. A mentor is a human being, right? They're not a super person, an alien, et cetera. They're a human being with needs and experiences just like you all are. And I guess that kind of, I want to maybe tweak the conversation a little bit about what you're looking for in a mentor for this next question. But can you discuss, as you're looking for a mentor, the importance of having a mentor with maybe similar cultural, racial experiences, right? That maybe there is a need to have somebody that can understand where you're coming from in a deeper level and what you're looking for. And so maybe Angela, Alexis, I'd love to hear from you. Can you discuss the importance of having that shared experience, whether it's lived or not lived experience? Can you share the value of maybe having someone like
that? Honestly, I've never intentionally sought out a mentor that had like similar cultural or like lived experiences as I feel like within my journey as like a former foster youth navigating through the world and through different systems, I've naturally gravitated toward people who I knew genuinely cared about me and wanted to see me succeed, whether they had like the same cultural background or like lived experience as a foster youth. Like I've naturally gravitated toward just naturally good people, like good people that had kind hearts and that were just passionate about helping others. And I feel like I formed mentors within different spaces, like when I was in high school or through like a nonprofit organization I'm passionate about, or through my role as a youth commissioner, or through my journey navigating through higher education, or through my gruesome journey of finding a job post-graduation. And that I feel like I've naturally formed mentors that have gravitated toward me based on different goals that I've had. And that's just my personal experience.
Really what you're saying, you don't have to share the same background, really. Sorry about that, Alexis.
No, all good. Thank you, Alain. So thank you for that, Angela. That was amazing. I think I want to echo that as well and just say that for me personally, I have different dual perspectives. So my mom is white, my dad is African. So I have those two dual of being mixed. I also am a Black woman in America. So that's a factor that's important to me. And then also just being a social worker, well, a social work major, and also a foster youth, I see this disconnect where family really, like family, mentors, friends, connections, they're like, oh, don't worry, like I know people in aviation, let me hook you up with my pilot buddies or my this or my that. And I'm like, what? Like, I need someone to hook me up with their pilot buddies. Like, I need this connection. And there's so many people on this call who have really, really believed in me. Just being an African American woman, just being in America, like who have, because there's a lot of people just being a foster youth, not being traditionally in these spaces that don't take us seriously, and having mentors that take what we do seriously. And even me being an independent contractor, people still ask me like, what are you going to do with your degree? Like, I'm doing it. I don't have to fall into whatever line you believe I need to fall into. And I've had mentors who have taught me that, and who have really, really instilled different connections and different opportunities that have helped me grow. And so that's what I think a mentor should be. It doesn't really always matter with culture or race. Sometimes I do need to have a conversation with a Black person, because the Black culture is something that certain people understand and certain people don't. And sometimes I need to speak to my white side, and that's important, or to my non-people of color side, or to an indigenous person, or to people who aren't even in my religion, because it makes a difference. And everybody has such an amazing insight and just different experiences that help me grow.
Well, thank you both for that. And I think what we're really hearing is that it doesn't really, that's not necessarily the central point that brings you right to these relationships. It's always something maybe a little deeper and a need. Anna and Chloe, I'd love for, to get your thoughts on this too, finding those connections. Maybe we start with you, Chloe.
Oh, sorry, Anna. I was gonna say, so like, it's very, very hard to, how do I put it into words? Okay, so I'm LGBTQ plus, I forget, there's probably some letters I should add, but I'm in that lighthearted joke, but yeah, I'm in that, right? And so it's not something, as you can obviously see, that you can see sometimes. It's not something that people look at you and go, yeah. And I'm also, figuring out gender for myself as well. So that's been a really difficult thing. But basically what I'm trying to say is that with the way I look sometimes, almost like in an opposite way, it actually leaves room for people not to connect with me on the same level, because it's like, I look like, I'm gonna be real, I look like a cis straight woman. That's completely fine. I've accepted it. Most people don't, pin me down. And, just being through so many experiences affected by my sexuality, losing people because of my sexuality, like, you kind of want someone who is gonna at least be open enough that, it's not that I need them to be LGBT. It's just, I've heard so many allies that aren't really allies. They're not really, people that understand that I don't need you to be my best friend. I just need you to know that I've always been existing. We've always been here. And then that's about it. And like, that's the basic bare minimum I have, is that people don't just say, oh, you're free to do what you do, but I don't want to hear any buts. I just want it to be like, yeah, we exist. And that's, sometimes it's just with some mentors, there's some certain, issues sometimes that come up where it's like, I exist, but not to a full capacity. And it's not a big issue, but I just wanted to throw it out there that, a lot of people are invisibly LGBT, and you can't always see it, and you can't always tell, because half the time, sometimes some of the kids don't even know themselves. So it's good to always kind of keep an open mind that you never really know who you're speaking with. And, you should keep that on the down low as a mentor and as a mentoree.
Thanks for sharing that.
Thank you, Chloe. Whoa. Yeah, I saw a lot of the chats going off, and that was really profound. I think for me, community groups have been really important to my success to this point. We talked about like navigating culture, and I think for me, going to college and being low income at an institution like Berkeley, where the majority of students are very high income and international and come from an immense like culture of privilege, to get here and be low income, to be first gen, to not have parents or close family to navigate this institution. It was really overwhelming. And I honestly like felt at so many points that like I might not be able to do it. And well, and that was a struggle in itself. I think other people have talked about that in this conversation as well. Like, I think when you come from a background in a community rooted and related to trauma, like, you're going to have so much self-doubt, especially in these major milestones that we navigate in our life. And so a mentor is supposed to help be that voice to calm and center you and say, like, you can do it. Because let's be honest, like, everyone needs that voice. Most people have it intrinsically in our families, but like, for foster youth, I think, and Think of Us data spoke to this as well. Like, we really need just a variety of different mentors and guides to help be that calming, reassuring voice. To me, I think I found really enormous community in a new program called MAPS, which helps navigate the culture and institutional component of grad school, because just as much as undergrad is so overwhelming and difficult, then entering professional school, I know some of us here on the call are in master's programs, like whatever it looks like, it's so difficult. And when I was applying to graduate school, I was really going through kind of financial and emotional turmoil in my life. And I didn't know if I would get in at all, get in anywhere. How could I afford it? Was I even a good enough candidate to apply? Given that no one in my life had really closely modeled this to me. And this program and mentorship MAPS, as well as Ready to Succeed, really gave me that professional and academic footing and reassurance to kind of calm me down and talk me off the ledge when I just really felt like I couldn't do this anymore for just a really wide variety of reasons.
Yeah, and it seems like that resonated, I think, with a lot of your co-panelists, and having that community, right? That community of care that pretty much could ride the waves, as Chloe mentioned earlier. Perla, I saw your hand raised. So would you like to add in as well?
Yeah, I actually wanted to second what Anna was saying. I have also had the privilege of working with MAPS, and something that I really liked is how a former member then became a mentor, and then now it was almost like giving back to the community, which I find it fascinating. The mentor that I was partnered up with has the same interests as me as far as my major, so it's been very nice to have that temporary connection, which I'm sure is going to be a long time connection, a long term, but she really just guided me and helped me through the process that I was going through. So I would say that mentors come and go in your lifetime, and they come in different shape and form. I remember my mentors in, undergrad, and there's now that connection, but there's not that one-on-one anymore. And now I'm looking for maybe another mentor that can help me with my master's program. So I would say that it keeps on going, and it's always that need of having someone that it's meeting you where you are in your current lifetime.
Yeah, that's powerful. Would any of the other co-panelists like to chime in? I do see that MAPS. I heard the organization MAPS. Could you all just share what that organization is, just for those who might not know? What is it? What is that organization? Anna or Perla?
Did you want to do mute, Anna?
Yes, sorry, could we get one more time? I was distracted by a couple.
No, that's okay. I was just, you both mentioned MAPS as an organization, and just for, especially for those who are, trying to be interested. What is MAPS?
Absolutely. I'd love to talk about it. I just finished my graduate law school application cycle. And so I really recently worked with this program. They're growing really rapidly. Actually, we're very lucky. The director is in on this call, Sylvia. And MAPS started recently. It was based at UC Davis initially and has expanded and is going to continue to grow. I don't want to speak to Sylvia's really broad dreams of where this program will go, but to really offer itself as a support and a pillar to all foster youth across the state. And I think there are even like larger dreams than that. But I think we all know, and there are a lot of social workers in the room, like applying to even just undergraduate, even if it's a state school, like whatever the application is, it is so difficult. From the get-go, we're battling like financial constraints, family constraints, trauma, mental, emotional things. And then you add that even before we apply, there's a sense of imposter syndrome. And so that's just for undergrad. And then I think graduate school, because of how higher academia is structured, and it's kind of very elite and just so institutionally difficult. So MAPS has really just, exactly like the name suggests, become a template and a map to help guide foster youth into these spaces. And I think what MAPS has really done powerfully is creating an alumni network where every graduate student that gets in then immediately turns around and starts helping the next cohort. So there were multiple MAPS students and alumni who immediately started connecting with me. Sylvia is building a resource base, and then just also making yourself available to the one-on-one. And I want to like put this in the context of all mentorship programs and allies that might be on this call, like just that individualized component and making yourself available, maybe even at odd hours. I loved that Sylvia this past fall, when there were dozens of us as foster youth applying to graduate programs across the board. There were people applying to masters in social work, people applying to law school, I think MBAs, just all the graduate programs under the sun. Sylvia offered herself as a support to help. But what she did, what I really appreciated, was making herself available in off hours. She would create 7 o'clock Zoom calls, and sometimes I'd show up and it'd just be me and Sylvia. But that being a point of equal access, that any foster youth that was struggling that day with their application could come into that space and seek that personalized community and support, was really meaningful. And I'll pass it to Perella. I don't know what you would like to add.
I would just like to add, I mean, you covered everything, but I would say like first generation students, we don't have that support really, and we don't have no guidance. And there's this desire of wanting to be better. But if we don't get that support and that knowledge, we're pretty much left alone. So something that I've been focusing on even myself now is all this help that I've been getting from my community is the goal is to be able to give back. So it's just amazing to be able to now pass down all this help that and resources that we have been getting to be able to help others grow.
Well, thank you, Perla and Anna. And again, it's not necessarily always to highlight maybe one organization, but I do think a lot of the elements of MAPS seems to resonate with a lot of you, right? The connections, the flexibility, the fact that it gives you an opportunity to not just be mentored, but also allows you to then step into a mentorship role after and join a larger kind of alumni network, as you mentioned. So love that. Thank you for highlighting some of that. You know, then I think that's a great connection into our next question, which is really about, you know, debunking what youth-centered or youth-led mentoring means, right? We hear about it all the time. Youth-centered this, youth-centered that, right? I really want to hear from you all around, you know, what does that really mean to have a youth-driven approach to mentorship, right? Where you all are really leading and driving your relationship and a mentor. And so maybe, you know, we'll start, you know, with Latrice. I'd love to hear from you kind of what your approach is to youth kind of driven or youth-led mentoring, and then we'll go ahead and ping pong right over to Anna and then Perla.
So youth-driven mentorship to me means like seeing the youth, being there for them, but also listening to their interests and their needs and figuring out how to like accommodate that and support that and what they want to do and the goals they want to reach in whatever time frame. So it's like, this is what I want to do. This is how I want to do it. I just need your assistance or your guidance or your advice on how to get it done in the best fashion. Not necessarily like, oh, we come together, you ask me what my interest is, and then you tell me what I should do. Or you tell me what's a better route or what you see me doing. No, like just support me in what I want to do and just give me the best advice for the situations that we discuss in our sessions. I feel like the number one thing you can do to like kind of like get a youth to shut down, especially a foster youth, is not hear them and then try to steer them in a different direction or to a different interest that they didn't really present to you. And yeah, that's my rant.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Next, Angela, would you like to share a little bit about, you know, what does youth-driven mentoring really mean to you? And then we'll go ahead and go down to Anna and then Chloe.
Yeah, I think youth-driven mentorship is very important because, like we highlighted, excuse me, throughout this conversation, that it's important for mentors to meet foster youth where they are. Like, we don't have traditional like backgrounds. The way that we have to navigate through systems is very different than those from traditional backgrounds, you know? And in college, I remember I had a mentor that was trying to help me get like the Television Academy internship like program, like the Television Academy like internship. And when she was helping me with my application materials, I was hesitant to work with her because, you know, she had all these amazing careers and roles within the entertainment industry. But at that time when I was in college, all I did was work at like a Mexican food restaurant for 2 years. I was working at a bowling alley, and then I had like 1 year of experience working as a peer mentor in the Renaissance Scholars Program at Cal Poly Pomona. And I was like, you know, I don't have direct experience working in the entertainment industry. I don't have direct experience working in like a corporate setting, like, and she has all these experiences. How is she going to understand why I don't have the same experiences as she has? And I'm like, you know what, let me just take a chance and work with her. And it was completely detrimental to my professional development because it's like she made me feel like ashamed and made me feel guilty for not, I don't know, having the experiences that she had. And like when it came to the way that I was showing up in the room and the reasons why I felt like I was navigating through my professional career the way that I was, it's like she would compare herself to me and say, oh, well, when I was in college, I had 4 jobs and I still did this and that. And I'm like, okay, like you came from a traditional background and I did not. So for you to compare yourself and make me feel ashamed or make me feel like I'm not doing my due diligence or I'm not hardworking was like, it had a negative impact on like my self-confidence, on my mental health, because as like a former foster youth, I already felt like no, people weren't going to see my value and see the things that I brought to the table simply because I haven't had the opportunities to show people at that time, you know? And I feel like it's very important to have like a youth-centered approach to mentorship because it's like we're the experts of our own experience. You need to meet us where we are and listen to us about like the things that we need to be successful and why we are in the place where we're at now and how you can help us get to where we want to be and hear it from our own mouths and not try to mold us or have us execute our careers or our goals the same way that you have because you haven't had the same experiences as us. I can go on and on about this, but I'll let the other panelists chime in.
I think that actually leads, I think, maybe even to a further question within that, because you talk about mentoring doing no harm, right? How do we make sure mentors do no harm? And I think that maybe I'd like to kind of center that even in the context of youth driven, right? How do we make sure that when mentoring relationships don't go well, how do we ensure that the mentors do no harm? And even talk about some of the barriers. So, Alexis, Anna, Chloe, would love to hear from you all, some of the big barriers that you found in mentoring mentee relationships and how any thoughts that you have on making sure mentors don't harm or further harm a young person in this relationship. So maybe starting with you, Alexis.
Sure. So I've had a lot of different mentoring experiences, either through like connection or through organizations. I also have some mentors who I never have met before. I've only met them either on Zoom or just talking to them on the phone because they live in a whole nother time zone or wherever. So I just want to make it clear that them living in another time zone, us only doing it on Zoom or phone is not a barrier. It actually has been really beneficial, especially learning from different people in different areas. I think, just that barrier is, again, just repeating what I said earlier, is people not really taking you seriously. People, there's a lot of social workers on here. So even as a social work person, we all know that or at least we should know that you can give people resources, you can do all the connections, but it's at the end of the day up to them to make their own decisions for their own lives. And I know that it hurts us. I know it does, because I'm always like, but it doesn't even take that long. But it doesn't matter, because this is their life and it's not your life. So just the same thing Angela was saying is just making sure that, you know, you're really authentically having that youth engagement, and then also authentically meeting youth where they're at. Because what I do on my day-to-day is nothing that you can do. It's not something that anyone else can do. It's only what I can do. And even sometimes I don't even do it that well. So just very making sure that you are having that authentic youth engagement and you're treating them like human beings. And I'll go ahead and pass it back.
Thanks for that. Thank you for that. Anna.
Yeah, I mean, I really appreciated what Vinny said earlier about kind of coming at things that might arise with your young person at a point of non-judgment. And so to echo what Alexis said, like, you're not living that youth's life very often. I think what I've seen with like my siblings and with the many foster youth I've met is like, we're very private about the hardships we're going through. Like, you look at a picture and it's like, oh, that picture looks fine, but under the surface, there are so many granular issues and probably problems arriving. And I think actually we normalize, and sometimes we don't even think about it. Like, and I felt like that a lot as a student. Like, I could show up to class and then like no one really realized like, oh, the rent disbursement and the checks from financial aid, like everything is screwed up, and people kind of don't get a sense of those things. So recognizing that, but if you ever meet a youth in crisis, I think just coming at it from a point of ultimate respect and understanding, and kind of like Vinny said in the beginning, you know, supporting them in those spaces, but not taking control and making it your life. So I thought that was really good. And I just definitely want to echo that kind of problem I see where we're very private. And so I think a really important part of mentorship is developing that authentic and kind relationship where youth can be honest with you about just having a terrible day, and it'll kind of lead to those natural organic conversations about how to support them best.
Powerful reminder of just being real, being open, being honest, non-judgmental, coming to it from a place of humility. Chloe, Perla, can you talk a little bit about barriers? Any barriers that you've seen around the mentor relationship?
Yeah, like emotional or societal?
It could be either. It really is your perspective on, you know, what are the barriers that you've seen potentially, you know, harming or doing further harm sometimes to a young person?
Yeah. I know that I'll have to make it quick too. Yeah. I think like earlier I was hearing a lot about how, you know, like everyone has a different experience as a foster youth, right? So like some people are here are going to have a family member or a foster mentor. You know, Perla has like this amazing mentoring team and, you know, is obviously amazing herself. And so there's going to be other people, as I, you know, consistently say about myself, that are the messy side of what happens. And so my story is not necessarily bad. Like I said, waves, you know, you can't judge a big wave on a little small wave. That's not really fair. But yeah, you know, sometimes people picked me to, I think in my own opinion, to better themselves because they had a perfect candidate. They had a girl with no family. They had a kid coming from the LA system. I was in group homes in Hollywood, in Union Station Boulevard. It was not a good neighborhood. It was not a good life. I went through a lot physically. I lost my court case. I went through a lot of hell, to be honest. I've lost a lot. I'm legally an orphan. You know, I'm going into the sad violin moment because when you have all this and then you have someone who doesn't relate at all, they go, oh gosh, let's talk to her. Let's give her advice. And I had not one, I had 5 academic mentors in high school. I had everyone on me. I was like honey to bees or whatever that analogy is. I was very adaptable, and I was always being passed around. Like everyone wanted to mentor me as soon as I got in the in the foster program. When I was a foster youth, everyone wanted to, you know, help me. And guess what? I won a bunch of awards. I won the President's Excellence Award. I was this high school, you know, amazing. And then as soon as I hit graduation, nothing. I lost everything. I lost every single mentor. I'm talking about, I told this in a pre-session, but my mentors wouldn't make eye contact with me in my senior year. If you want to cut that off to, you know, oh, it's sad because I'm leaving, we're not talking anymore. It was like I got into college, they got their next kid to mentor. They kind of saw it. It made me feel as if the last 2 years where I spent talking to them and like calling them like almost like my aunts and my uncles, and then all of a sudden they looked at me and they said, well, you'll go to college and you'll make a new life, you'll make new friends. And they would always, what I'm trying to say is that that's very traditional mentorship. That's how I think a lot of people have seen it, that, you know, you pick a kid, you help them with your paid program, or, you know, you do 1 to 2 years and then you move on. But the problem is that I don't have anyone else to move on with. So when I lose that, I lose it for good. And so what I'm trying to say is that, you know, you have to keep it as, I don't want people to give up themselves. I don't want people to give up their entire life or mind as a mentor. You know, you deserve to have a life. I'm saying that when you look at a kid or a person like me, I'm not a kid anymore, but you have to think about not temporary problems, not temporary issues. This is a person who needs someone to stay a little bit. And if you can't do that, then don't sow where you can't be, you know, planted. don't stay in the ground if you can't stay that long. That's the best advice. And honestly, a lot of people can't stay that long. So that's why it's like, then keep about it mentally. If you can't physically stay that long, like let's say it's a temporary program, then, you know, think about it in ways where it's like, you tell them when they're talking about how, you know, they feel ugly or that they went through this thing or stuff that's permanent, right? The stuff that they will permanently tell you about, damages. You tell them, well, hey, I'm here to listen, and you do. And that stuff lasts for years. If someone gives them a new memory resulted to some trauma that they opened up to you, and you stay with them and you just sit there, you hold the moment together, that lasts for years. Even if you can't stay for a few years, there's sometimes words and ways that we can help that reverse some of the trauma. And that's coming from someone who doesn't really have a lot of on my team right now. But, you know, I'm looking to build, you know, I could always do with an A team, but, you know, it's basically that, to wrap it up, sorry for the rant, to wrap it up, I think that we always worry as mentors too, like we always worry, well, I can't stay that long, like how am I supposed to help them? Stay in the moment when someone's vulnerable and not leave, not get scared like all the other people who supported them did before. You know, parents, people that were important who just left, who couldn't hold the moment with them. When you hold the moment, you reverse an event, you reverse pain. Sometimes you can really reverse the process that's been made to harm. So yeah, to wrap that up.
No, not a rant at all. And again, thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that. We want to hold this moment too, right? This is us doing that right now, holding that moment. I saw a hand raised Latrice. Would you like to answer a question around those barriers, or how do we ensure as mentors we do no harm?
I kind of wanted to piggyback off of what Chloe was saying, because she hit like a plethora of like good points as she was talking. And it's like coming into the situation as a mentor, like I only have a set amount of time with this child. No, you don't. Like if you're not prepared to be there into their adulthood, into like their lives, like as like a permanent person, don't engage. Like, I just feel like don't engage, because especially when you're doing it with foster youth, because we're already used to parents coming and disappearing. We're already used to being in a foster home and then being there for 2 months and then getting kicked out and having to go to another one and then having to go to another one. And these temporary relationships, we're already used to that. And opening up to you and telling you, oh, this is what's going on in my life at this time. That's not, like she said, we're private about that stuff. It's hard to tell people about that stuff. It's hard to feel like you're not going to be judged when you give this stuff away. So for you to be like, oh, I shared all of this information with this person and all of a sudden they don't have time for me, that hurts. So if you're not prepared to be there, don't engage as a mentor. Like, I just feel like there's no point of engaging, or there's no point of me sharing my story if you're not gonna be available for where it ends up in the end. Like, this is only one part, this is only one chapter. If you're not gonna read the book to the end, then you're not gonna get the full experience of the book. So just I don't know, but I love everything you said, and I feel like that's a big part of it. And it's like a big part of it is just being consistent, showing up, being genuine, and being there for the long run.
That's powerful, powerful. I see a couple more hands raised. I think Perla and then Angela.
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to say from my experience, what I have done as I mentor is I set a boundary, right? It's almost unrealistic for me to continue this mentoring program for a very long period. And I also understand that some people move to places, some people get a family and the opportunity is no longer available. But it doesn't take too long to reach out, to send a check-in. How are you doing? What is going on in your life? In my program, it's a 16-week course. I make it very clear that the fact that I'm not meeting with them doesn't mean I'm no longer available. You can always reach out. I'm now a network contact that you can reach out for. And if I don't have an answer, I'll be more than happy to reconnect you with someone. Recently, I would just check in like, how are you doing? And remembering like, did you finish school? How was this semester, right? A simple hello, I remember you can make a whole difference. So I would say, don't be afraid of that commitment, but just be aware that you need to, check in with them. And as it was mentioned by my peers, we've been used to like people come and go in our lives, right? Non-consistency. And I guess that's the rule number one that should be in a mentorship, where consistency is there, where you are passionate about what you do and you have empathy, following up by not saying, I understand, because in reality, you might not understand, right? So being very careful with the words that you use and rather saying it's okay for you to feel that way. Maybe even being trauma informed. I think that's a huge one. A lot of the times mentorship just think like they know it, but there's so much room for improvement, and getting coached is the best way to be able to coach. That's what I would say in my part.
That's powerful. Angela, we'll round out this part of our session with you.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Alan. So I kind of wanted to just echo, piggyback off of what Latrice, Chloe, and Perla have said, and then also address like a question that was in the chat. Like someone asked, what do you do if like a mentee ghosts you? Because I feel like we're having a ghosting conversation right now. And I think a lot of you have heard the saying that people come into your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And that is something important for everyone to to remember, like both mentors and mentees. And that like with any relationship you have, whether it's romantic or personal or professional, that people naturally just come and go and life gets in the way sometimes too, and that someone may be in your life because they're helping you apply for a certain job, or because they're helping you navigate through college, or they may be there for a lifetime. Like, hey, I initially came into your life to help you with this or to support you in this sense, but I really value our relationship and we've naturally formed like a good relationship with each other, and now we like talk every day. And I feel like something that will also help combat like these feelings of like loss is to remember that, I don't know, a big thing I like to echo or say all the time is that life gets in the way. Sometimes I accidentally ghost people just because I'm overwhelmed with life and all the priorities that I have, and you never know what someone's going through in their life. They may not purposely ghost you, but they're just so bogged down with like everything going on in their life that they that they haven't been able to reach out. And that gives you the opportunity to say, and to use like good communication skills and say, hey mentor, or hey mentee, I haven't heard from you in a long time, and I would really love to reconnect with you to see what you're up to, or to see like what support you need from me, or whatever the case may be. And I just want to echo that life gets in the way sometimes. Good communication is important. I feel like it's always a two-way street. And I'm not defending bad mentors, because there are some mentors that you tell your whole life story to, and then it's like they're MIA the next week, or they never respond to your text messages and stuff. And that's one thing. But I feel like it's important for everyone to remember and like be intentional with remembering that, life gets in the way sometimes. And if you want something, you got to go out there and get it, and also be vocal about what your needs are.
Thank you, Angela. So we have Alexis to respond, and then we're going to do a rapid fire round and then get into some Q&A. So Alexis.
Thank you. Yes. So I have a mentor who it was clear with me, and she told me like, hey, this program and like it ended, but I'm all like, we are having such good conversation. Like, I'm like, let's just check in. She checks in with me once a week. Like, maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't. I get it. But in terms of ghosting, so because I do a lot of independent contracting, working with a lot of nonprofits and things like that, people don't understand there's a back piece to it, like we were all saying on here today. So we're not going to tell you like, maybe I don't have housing, or maybe this and that. Maybe I only tell it close people that I don't have housing. But until I can get that need fixed, until I can get the housing or get the car or get the Wi-Fi for the Zoom or whatever, I can't perform the way I want to. And sometimes it's hard for people to say that, but you have to realize that there's a lot going on in our life. And it may not be necessarily that we're ghosting, because people say that a lot, like, oh, well, they're not showing up. But it's like, that's where I come in, because you need the resources, you need the community building in order to get those people to where they need to be on the next platform. And just like everyone else was saying, there's a lot of people who are in my life for a season, and there's a lot of people who are still in my life and who will be in my life. And maybe we don't talk every week, but we will talk. And I don't have a problem reaching out, and they don't have a problem reaching out to me. So just thinking about those kind of things.
Love it. Love it. Thank you all. I mean, obviously this was so necessary to hear about sometimes the darker side to mentoring. And thank you so much for your feedback. All right, we're going to get into a quick rapid fire round, 15 seconds for each of you. We're going to ask the question, any do's or don'ts, right? Any do's or don'ts for mentors, starting with Chloe. 15 seconds. Any do's or don'ts, words of wisdom for mentors.
Okay. Learn to surf emotional, physical waves. People are in pain. People are also great when they are in pain. They're not always going to just be pain. Don't use your own life as a stunting growth between you thinking that'll make a connection when you don't know them. Maybe it won't, maybe it will. Maybe just be in the moment, be open. Neutrality is the best motive with foster kids.
Thanks, Chloe. We'll go to Latrice.
Okay. Do be honest and upfront about your capabilities. Do support, be understanding, do listen. Don't judge. And I don't know what other don'ts. Oh, don't tell them what not to do, or don't try to be forceful or apply pressure that is not needed or might not be taken well. Yeah, and don't give up on them. That's all.
Awesome. Thanks, Latrice. Okay, Anna, and then Perla.
Do be creative and holistic in the relationship and how you show up for the youth. I once had a mentor, and I had just gone through surgery, and they made their home available to me. They brought me meals. Like, that's such a creative and strange way to mentor, but sometimes in the moment that was entirely what I needed. And I think that's sometimes what mentorship takes, especially for those really crucial moments of crisis. Don't be offended if your youth is kind of going through something, is not responding immediately, and don't kind of shut yourself off from that relationship. Kind of continuously try to engage and rebuild if possible.
I can go on and on for do's and don'ts, but I'm gonna say one of each. Don't force them to tell you the story. Let it flow and let them be open when they are ready to be open. Do's, continue on providing the resources and the information. Even if they don't take it, a lot of the times it only takes them to know where they could find it or how they could do it. They might not need it at the moment, but in a long time, they will. And just knowing that there was somebody available that give them the resource, it's going to put them in a good place.
All right, and Angela, and then round us out, Alexis. Do and don't. Thank you.
Oh man, I'm bad with time. I would say I'm echoing what all the other panelists said. Do be a good listener, be empathetic, and don't push your mentee beyond their limits. Don't use your life trajectory and your story and compare it to your mentees. And remember that we all have different experiences and different pathways.
Alexis.
Hey, okay, so I'm so bad at this, but I want to make sure that people like effectively show people what communication is, show people maybe you guys had a disagreement, so show them how does it look to have a healthy conversation after you have a disagreement. Like maybe not ghost them after, maybe we can talk about like why did that happen or something. Do like, yeah, kind of make yourself available, be that community partner, like be that linkage and referral and that um person who's just going to be there for them, because we don't have the things that other people have. We don't have the connection, just like I was saying earlier, and we need that. And there's so many people that maybe you don't feel like you're doing whatever your role to your capacity or whatever, but you have so much insight that really, really helps us. And we do too. So just be open to that two-way street.
Thank y'all for the rapid fire answers and again, the do's and don'ts. We have a couple of minutes now for open for questions. So I'll pass it over to Lauren Nichols, who will lead us in the Q&A period.
Thank you, Alan, and thank you so much to our incredible speakers. A virtual round of applause, please. Thank you for being real with us, for being honest, for being bold. We really appreciate it. So folks who have questions, please raise your hands and we'll take questions in the order we see hands go up. You could also drop your question in the chat. I'm not seeing any hands up, but if anyone does, let me know.
Can we go back to the original question that was asked, like in the first question that one of the young ladies was trying to ask about, like supporting her youth and them being depressed and how to approach that?
Go ahead, Latrice.
Oh, I wanted her to ask it again because I just didn't want to.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
But if you have something to say, Chloe, you could go.
I kind of got the vibe of her question, I guess. She can always ask it again. I just wanted to add some of the things she said to it. If she wants to repeat the question, she totally can. I just know that she was, oh, sorry.
No, I do see a hand up. So whatever that question was, ask it again so we can see it and we can address it. We have time to do that. Otherwise, I'll go to Sid Stewart from Better Youth. Sid, go ahead, please.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for this insightful conversation. I think those of us who've mentored for years kind of think we know it all. And today you all just kind of wiped the slate clean. I know for me, you just kind of wiped the slate clean. And I know some of you very well. But my question is, how do we as adults who have intentionality and want to be there for you, what advice do you give to us to help build trust? So that you trust us to kind of open up when you don't know us. And I know, Chloe, I want to start with you because we kind of had an interesting, connection when we first met. And, our intentionality is always to say, hey, we're here for you. But, we're not perfect. We're purposed in this work, but we do fail. So can you help us how do we cultivate that incubator of trust with you?
I had a really interesting introduction when I met Sid. I'll wrap this up very quickly. I was on the verge of homelessness. I was a struggling college student. Latrice met me. I was crying every day at my job. I was not a good worker. I was a right mess. I was not good. Sid every single day was like, it's okay. Everything's be fine. You're going to have a home. And then I got a home. And so, we had a very interesting start because basically, long story short, a mentor like Sid saw me my messiest state. So yeah, building trust. To be honest with you, something that a lot of people don't know about foster youth, but I might be a little too big-headed here. I think a lot of us are very stubborn in our feelings because once you're vulnerable, specifically to a court system or a legal system, and you watch everyone kind of maybe not listen to you, maybe at young ages or teenagers, you watch everyone judge you at a higher power. When you have a mentor in front of you who's like, I'm here, you kind of are like, are you though? And I think sometimes, that's not directed at Sid, love you, but I'm just saying that it's genuinely from the bottom of my heart with the trust thing. I think a lot of it is we're always like, yeah, but how do we know? How would we know to trust someone? And I think what I can answer to that is that for me, and I think for a lot of people, it's having a moment together, whether it's on a phone call, whether it's next to each other, sitting next to each other, there's peace, there's silence, someone says something and you hold it. Holding moments with other people is something a lot of people don't take enough credit for, because it's like, that means that person didn't react. That means that person didn't not believe me. This person sat here with me in a moment where I was vulnerable and listened, and that's it. You know, I always get all these programs and advice, and specifically growing up formerly religious, you have a lot of people praise stuff to you that you might not always want to hear in that moment. So I think it's like, what I'm trying to say is that sometimes to be still and to be held is much more wonderful than any kind of rapid fire advice or, you know, programs. You know, sometimes programs are great, but sometimes you just want a human being next to you who heard you. And I think that that's the biggest advice I could give for mentors. Yeah, but I do love Sid. Shout out. Hey, still respect you. You're the best.
I love you too, Chloe. I think being honest with each other, and you're one of the most honest people I know, but that helps us, right? So I don't really consider it being in your messy state, right? It was a phase. It was one of the ocean waves, right? That I just got in with you and tried to surf. But I think when you all are continuously honest with us, we can be honest with ourselves and how we get better at serving you. Thank you.
Angela, I see your hand up. Did you want to weigh in before we close out?
Yeah, I just wanted to weigh in fast and say something that people can do to like build like trust with us, I think, is to just show up for us in small ways, like in the beginning. Like if I said, hey, I'm having a bad day today, and you heard me say it in passing, like maybe a few hours later or something, if you said, hey, Angela, I heard you were having a bad day today, like here's like I don't know, a cookie or something. Like just doing small acts of kindness really goes a long way. And all of those small acts build rapport with us, like after a consistent amount of time. And that I feel like also that, yeah, just doing small acts of kindness and showing up for us in small ways and like following through and being consistent. Like if you say you're going to do something and then you actually do it for us, we're like, hey, this person's a real deal. They actually care about me. Like, I like this person, and doing that over and over again in small ways in the beginning builds up to like something larger and will help us like feel like connected and like we trust you.
Thank you, Angela. And thank you, everyone. Again, please join me in giving another round of applause to our incredible youth speakers today. Alain Datcher from the Youth Commission for moderating today's discussion, Foster Together Network, and Think of Us for being part of this incredible program. I want to encourage folks and acknowledge Piper's question about mentoring organizations. I encourage everyone after this conversation to go to Foster Together Network's website. On the Connection series, which this conversation is part of a 3-part series called the Connection series, we do have resources. And included in those resources is a directory of LA County-based mentoring organizations. So if you're feeling inspired like I am today and want to do more and learn about how to become a mentor, support another organization who is helping young people like our panelists today, please check out the directory. And join us also for the next 2 sessions. So next Thursday at 9:30, we're going to be convening some incredible, innovative mentoring organizations who are doing their work differently, utilizing creative approaches. So we'll be spotlighting Forever Friends from LA County Probation, Peace for Kids, and Just in Time. So it promises to be a really exciting, informative, and again, educational session. And then on May 19th, the following Thursday at 9:30, we're going to have a session dedicated to mentoring and coaching for caregivers, for resource parents. So we'll be looking at how we can support foster families from the caregiver side. So thank you all today for being part of this conversation, and we look forward to seeing you next Thursday and on May 19th for the whole series.